Somewhere in a vault in Seattle, or maybe in a storage unit in Los Angeles, or possibly in someone's basement, there are recordings of Kurt Cobain that almost no one has ever heard. Songs he wrote in the final months before his death. Alternate versions of Nirvana classics that sound completely different from what we know. Home recordings made on a cheap 4-track in his living room at 3 in the morning. These tapes exist. Multiple people have confirmed it. But here's the problem. No one knows exactly where they are, and the people who do know aren't talking. If this mystery has you hooked, smash that like button and subscribe, because we're about to dig into one of the strangest unsolved puzzles in rock history. Let me start with what we know for sure. Kurt Cobain was constantly recording. Not just in professional studios with Nirvana, but alone at home whenever inspiration hit. He had a 4-track recorder, the kind you could buy at any music store in the early 90s, and he used it obsessively. Friends who visited his house in the months before his death said there were cassettes everywhere, dozens of them, some labeled, most not. Kurt would record a song idea, toss the tape in a pile, and move on to the next one. He wasn't organized, he wasn't archiving his work for history, he was just creating constantly, desperately. Barrett Jones, a producer who worked with Nirvana in their early days, once said that Kurt treated recording like therapy. When he couldn't sleep, when the pain got too bad, when his mind wouldn't shut off, he'd go to his 4-track and record. Sometimes it was full songs, sometimes it was just noise, sometimes it was him talking, processing his thoughts out loud, and all of it went onto those cassettes. Now here's where it gets complicated. After Kurt died in April 1994, his estate had to figure out what to do with all his belongings. His guitars, his journals, his artwork, and yes, his tapes. Courtney Love, as his widow, controlled the estate. She hired people to catalog everything, to sort through the chaos Kurt had left behind. And what they found was staggering. According to people involved in the process, there were at least 50 cassettes of home recordings, maybe more. Some were clearly labeled with song titles. Others were mysteries. But here's the thing that haunts everyone involved. Not all of those tapes made it into the official archive. Some disappeared, and depending on who you ask, they either vanished by accident, were deliberately hidden, or never existed in the first place. Let me give you a specific example. In 1993, Kurt recorded a solo acoustic session at a studio in Seattle. It wasn't for an album. It wasn't for Nirvana. It was just him, alone, working through some new material. The engineer who recorded it said Kurt laid down at least 8 songs. Raw, stripped down, just voice and guitar. After the session, Kurt took the master tape with him. He said he wanted to listen to it at home. That tape has never been heard publicly. The engineer kept a reference copy for himself, but even that copy has never surfaced. So where is it? Some people believe Courtney has it locked away, waiting for the right time to release it. Others think it was stolen in the chaos after Kurt's death when people were going through his belongings. And some think Kurt himself destroyed it because he wasn't happy with it. All 3 theories are possible. All 3 theories have been claimed as fact by different people, but nobody really knows. Then there's the In Utero sessions. When Nirvana recorded their final studio album in 1993, they tracked way more material than what ended up on the record. Steve Albini, the producer, is famous for recording everything, every take, every experiment, every mistake. The full In Utero session tapes include alternate versions, different arrangements, songs that were started and abandoned. Albini has said publicly that he has copies of these sessions, but he's also said he won't release them without permission from the band's estate. So they exist, they're just locked away, preserved but inaccessible. And here's what makes this so frustrating for fans. Sometimes a piece of these recordings leaks. In 2015, a home recording of Kurt playing an early version of a song surfaced online. It was rough, barely finished, but it was real. People went crazy trying to figure out where it came from. Was it stolen? Was it intentionally leaked? No one would say. It appeared, people freaked out, and then it disappeared again, scrubbed from the internet by lawyers protecting the estate. This pattern has repeated over and over. A snippet here. A rumor there. Someone claims they heard a tape at a party in the 90s. Someone else says they know a guy who has a copy, but nothing concrete ever emerges. It's like chasing ghosts. Now let me tell you about the most controversial tape of all. According to multiple sources, in the final weeks before his death, Kurt recorded what some people call his suicide tape. Not a note, but an actual recording. Him talking, playing guitar, working through his thoughts. Some people who claim to have heard it say it's heartbreaking, a window into his mental state in those final days. Others say it doesn't exist, that it's a myth created by people trying to make sense of his death. But here's the thing. Enough credible people have mentioned it over the years that it's hard to dismiss completely. If it does exist, it's the most closely guarded recording in rock history. And if it doesn't, it's the most persistent legend. Either way, it represents something bigger than just a tape. It represents all the lost pieces of Kurt Cobain, all the things we'll never know, all the art he didn't get to finish. So what happened to all these recordings? The honest answer is it depends on which recording you're asking about. Some are definitely in the official Nirvana archive, preserved and cataloged, waiting for a decision on whether to release them. Some are probably in private collections owned by people who have no intention of sharing them. Some might have been lost in fires, floods, or just the chaos of moving from place to place. And some, the ones people whisper about, might not have ever existed at all. But here's what really gets me about this whole mystery. Kurt Cobain was one of the most important artists of his generation, and we still don't have access to significant portions of his work, not because the work is gone, but because of legal issues, personal decisions, and just plain confusion about what exists and where it is. It's like having a library where half the books are locked away and nobody has the key. The mythology around Kurt has only grown since his death. Every lost tape becomes more valuable, more legendary, more impossible to verify. And the longer they stay hidden, the more people mythologize what might be on them. Maybe they're masterpieces, maybe they're just rough sketches. We'll never know until someone decides to unlock the vault. And that's the real tension here. These recordings exist in a strange limbo between reality and legend. They're real enough that people have heard them. They're hidden enough that most of us never will. They're valuable enough to protect. They're controversial enough to hide. And they're a reminder that even in death, Kurt Cobain remains just out of reach. A mystery we're still trying to solve 30 years later. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next video. And if you want more stories about music's greatest mysteries, check out my video on the missing Beatles sessions that almost no one knows about. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.